Chapter 2, The Fame Game. "So, Jade, who are these agents?" Sam asked with a smile. "Well, they're different agencies across different quadrants," Jade replied. "Wait, we're not all using the same agency?" Sai asked. "No. Although there are a lot of them interested in you guys, we couldn't find one that was interested in all of you, so we had to split you up," Max replied. "So how does that work?" Eve asked with a gun-shy demeanor. "I will, but before I do that, let me get the trials out of the way first," he responded. "Where do I start? Well, I guess I'll start with what it is. And, well, it's an event that was set up by the High Council to identify and reward the top amateur legions in the Heavenly Realm." "High Council?" Uriah asked with a curious squint. "They're like the governors of the Third Heavenly Realm. There are 10 in each realm. They're made up of former Light Guardsmen who are elected by the people in each of the 10 macro quadrants in each of the 7 Heavenly Realms. But you won't be dealing with them aside from a brief drop-in right before your admission, and that won't happen until after you've been officially approved for admittance into the Academy. For the most part, you'll be dealing with the lower council, elected headmasters of each of the 12 schools in the realm." "Wait, 12 schools? I thought there was only one Light Guard Academy," I asked, confused. "There is, but there are 12 houses that make up the Academy. Each year there is one legion accepted into each school. At the end of the trials, 12 unanimous squads are chosen and are ranked from 1 to 12. And starting from the top-ranked school down, each legion chooses their school until every legion has a school," he replied. "It's one of the biggest events in the Heavenly Realm. Schools roll out the red carpet to get the most coveted legions." "Wow," Sam gushed. "Out of millions of legions, there are only 12 that are chosen." "Oh no," Max interceded. "There are only 12 that are afforded the opportunity to choose the house they prefer. The lower council can choose as many legions as they please, so the numbers can run anywhere from 12 to 1,000,000. The 12 unanimous legions just keep things even among the houses. They don't want one house having more than one unanimous legion." We all nodded, signaling that we understood before Jade continued. "Yeah, but once again, that's looking forward," he replied. "You have to win the trials first, and no matter how good you are, that is not an easy feat." "What is this thing?" Jacob replied with an icy stare. "I mean, you guys act like it's the Super Bowl. Is it really that big of a deal?"
"Of course, it's awesome!" Zach gushed. "Me and Joe have never missed one since used to. Never missed one since before we used to be born. Yeah, with the fighting and trial undertakings. Bang! Boom!" added Joe, acting out the fights, bumping into me and Sai throughout. "Man, those triple alphas from last year were awesome!"
"Translation?" Sai uttered in an annoyed tone. "Yeah, they're referring to last year's top-ranked legion. They're from the Alpha House. They hail from the Alpha Alpha Omega quadrant," Max clarified. "Please clarify it in Earthrealm terms," I added sarcastically. "The Alpha House is an elite prep academy headed by a former lower council member named Riel Uriel. They put out some of the top legions every year. Most of them are groomed to compete from the time they can walk," Jade answered. "Wait, so they actually have prep schools that help legions get into the academy?" Pete wondered aloud. "Yeah, it's fairly common. There are a few hundred per quadrant, but most stink. But the Alpha House is prestigious. They find young guys with talent and prep them. They're extremely thorough. And if we hadn't gone through painstaking efforts to keep these guys off the radar, they would have been on their trails a long time ago. We knew if they had any inkling of the power these guys possessed, they would have been knocking down their parents' doors trying to get them," Max replied, putting Joe and Zach in a headlock with each arm. "Yeah, lucky us," Eve replied with a roll of her eyes. The boys obliviously smiled and nodded in an approving manner, still unable to fully comprehend Eve's Earthrealm sarcasm. "This year's squad is probably one of the best squads they've had in years. Some actually believe that Riel intentionally held back some of his better applicants last year, waiting for a chance to put them up against you guys," Max continued. "So who are they?" Luke inquired in a hesitant manner. "They're the Alpha Beta Alpha Legion," he replied, turning to us.
Wait, the Legion the news thing was just talking about. The one they may be putting us up against, Sai exploded.
To be the best, you got to beat the best, Sam replied with a confident swagger.
Yeah, but this best just happens to have been preparing for us for the last 3 years. Did you forget? We just learned to fight a month ago. We're going to get our clocks cleaned. Did you see us in that fight? We barely survived. What chance do we have against these guys? Eve spewed venomously.
She was right. We did pretty well for beginners, but who were we kidding? We were amazed by Zek and Joe, and even though they're prodigies, they were just children. I could only imagine how prodigies our age looked. A sinking feeling slowly rose in the pit of my stomach. Eve was right. No matter how advanced we were still just a ragtag team thrown together at the last minute. Did we really stand a chance against a group of prodigies that ate, slept, and breathed this competition? I mean, I'm as confident as anybody, but like that Abdiel guy said, this is hardly a fair matchup, Jacob added.
I would love to tell you that they take things like that into consideration, Jade replied with a pause. But interest is the bottom line. Nobody is forced to pursue or promised a spot in the academy. It is completely on the Legion whether or not they want to compete, and even though your circumstances are different, they can't treat you any differently. They are going to put together the matchups that are popular. Abdiel was being diplomatic, but to be honest, I would be surprised if you guys are not placed against the ABA Legion.
So we're dead? Pete uttered, speaking for all of us. Speak for you, Sam rebutted. I'm going to kick every one of their butts. Or one of their butts. Or wait, are we fighting one by one or together in like a battle type thing?
I guess it's better to be an idiot in the face of danger, Eve poked. A fool can't understand a bad deal enough to fear it.
Hey, Sam replied.
Sam definitely didn't lack heart, but I could tell it was all a facade. He was putting on. He hadn't been the same Sam I'd known. He was timid and had spent most of the time since his recovery quietly brooding. He chimed in from time to time, but I could tell something about our last battle had him shook. But seriously, Sam's right, I interrupted. How does this thing work? Is it a Legion battle, some type of written test, or is it a test of strength? It's neither, Jade replied. The Light Guard trials are taken in 3 parts: the Council Evaluation, the Relic Undertaking, and the Duel. The Council Evaluation is the most important aspect of the process. It dictates the agenda of an applicant's trial. What do you mean by applicant? Pete questioned. I thought we were tried as a Legion.
Well, yes, you are tried as a Legion, but every member of the Legion is a separate applicant. You all will be evaluated and given trials based on your council evaluation, Max explained. The council evaluates your past battles and missions and gives the applying applicant a battle ranking of S, A, B, C, or D. These rankings are based on the amount of approval and disapprovals an applicant receives from the council. For an S ranking, an applicant must receive a unanimous 12 out of 12 votes from the council. To this day, no one has ever received an S ranking in a trial, so don't be depressed about it. There's always one reason or another for why a council member disapproves, and for the most part it's purely political, so don't feel slighted if you don't get a perfect score. Really, most applicants are deemed prodigies to get an A or higher ranking B, which is 11 or 10 out of 12 votes, respectively. 6 votes will get you a C, and anything below a 4 will get you a D.
Has anyone ever gotten a 1 or no votes at all? Beth asked insecurely.
Well, no. I don't think there's been a vote of 0 or 1 ever. Most applicants won't even try out unless they believe they have at least 3 votes in the bag, Max replied.
So what happens if you get a D?
Pete followed up.
Well, each ranking dictates the outline of the applicant's trial. If an applicant receives a S, they are automatically accepted into the house of their choosing. No trials are needed, Jade replied. An A or B gives the applicant the choice of taking a relic undertaking or a duel. That's the second time you've said that. What is a relic undertaking? Sai asked, walking forward.
Well, in every home realm there are relics or weapons blessed by God and stowed away. These weapons are given to remnants or prophets to pursue a heavenly undertaking. They are discreetly hidden in elaborate labyrinths upon the death of a faithful prophet. A relic undertaking is a mission in which an applicant travels through these labyrinths to collect the holy relics the prophets left behind, Max replied. Most undertakings are assigned to an applicant's home realm in a place only known to the heavens. Applicants must overcome beasts, a competing applicant, and various dangers to apprehend the relic and bring it back. Upon their arrival with the relic, they're approved for admission. Psh, and I thought this would be hard, Luke added sarcastically.
Yeah, they make it sound so easy, Eve poked, joining in. I don't know why we were so worried.
Well, what about this duel? I asked, over the accompanying snickers to Eve's joke. Well, at the beginning of the trial, all Legion applicants' names are put into a database. The database randomly selects an applicant for council evaluation. They are given the choice of a duel. It's a challenge to an opposing Legion's applicant. Should the opposing applicant accept the challenge to a duel, anyone with a grade of A, B, or C, should they win, will be automatically accepted into the Academy. Any applicant with a ranking of D will still have to take a relic undertaking if their mission or battle ranking is not high enough for approval, although they are not necessarily forced into a duel if they succeed in that undertaking. What do you mean by necessarily? I added, confused. Well, all applicants who lose in a relic undertaking have the right to challenge the opposing applicant to a duel for one last chance at taking control of the relic in their possession, Max explained.
Wait, so even if you win, you still may be required to duel? I asked, bewildered.
I was getting tired just thinking about this thing. It's rare, but yeah, if an applicant feels he may have the upper hand in a direct battle, they may challenge the winner to a duel in a last-ditch chance to acquire the relic, he replied.
I knew this would be hard, but this is ridiculous, Sai exclaimed. Beasts, super legions, and labyrinths? What is this?
And with this duel thing, how do you choose your opponent? Sam uttered, still forcing a confident demeanor.
Well, if your name is on the Legion roster, then you are available to be challenged, even if you are already approved. It doesn't matter. If you are challenged, you must fight or lose your chance at an approval, Jade replied. But what if you've already been challenged? How many times can a person be challenged? Just once, but a person who has challenged is still open to be challenged themselves by a later applicant. Only the challenged are taken out of consideration, not the challenger, he replied. So keep that in mind. Just because you challenged someone doesn't mean you can't be challenged later in the trial.
You said we're tried as a legion, not as individuals, but that doesn't make sense. The way you're explaining it, some of us could make it while the rest could be bounced, Jacob interrupted.
Well, that takes me back to the answer to Pete's question. If a person has a D or worse and fails one or both of their trials, he or she will be wiped from consideration. The Legion can either drop the applicant from their roster or take a Legion failure. If the Legion takes a failure, they will be open to reapply the next year, but they are disqualified the year of the failure. But that's only if you have an applicant with a D rank. Without a D ranking, it comes down to a head-to-head battle in the form of the options I just explained, with the winner of a best-of-7 trial series gaining an automatic approval into the Academy, he explained. So we have to win 4 out of the 7 head-to-head trials and we win? Pete pressed. Well, yes, if you don't have a D-ranking Legion mate, Jade replied with a regretful demeanor. I am your Legion host, so it would be irresponsible not to warn you. After Sam's performance at the Battle of New Angeles, and the overall lack of experience of your Legion, I would be surprised if Sam got higher than a D ranking. I thought back to the moment in the battle where I decided to let him fall. I couldn't believe that a simple act of convenience would have such a ripple effect. I felt guilty. It was like someone had punched me in the gut. I shamefully looked over at Sam. He wore a somber scowl on his face. I felt like such a jerk. So you're saying that Sam will probably have to do both an undertaking and duel if he's challenged, Pete reiterated. Well, that, and if he's randomly selected, it's highly probable he'll be challenged if he does successfully complete the undertaking. Sam's showcasing was stymied, so more than likely he'll be the target of the other teams.
It's just the smart move considering the skills the rest of you showcased in battle. Right now, to the competing legion, he's the weakest link," Jade explained, apologetically pandering to Sam with every word. How embarrassing it must have been for him, but he just stood emotionless. He was driving me crazy. I wanted him to look at me, yell, maybe even try to fight, but he just sat there. His demeanor was so unsettling. It's like with every second that passed, I became more and more restless for a response. I wanted him to tell everyone it was my fault, let them know that I had put him in this predicament, but he wasn't saying anything at all. Out of the corner of my eye, I could feel an icy stare piercing through me. I turned to see Eve shaking her head with a disgusted demeanor. She knew, and it seemed like it was taking everything she had not to shriek me into next week. "Well, say something, Sam. You're acting weird," she antagonized, still staring at me with a vengeful glare. "What do you want me to say?" he replied, still emotionless. "He's right. I was awful in that fight. If I was on the other team, I would probably go after me too." The limo grew silent as everyone seemed to be caught off guard by Sam's words. It was so contrary to the Sam we knew. The Sam that was brash, confident, and unapologetic. The Sam before us was docile and insecure. It was off-putting for me. "That's not true," Eve shot back. "I've seen you at your best, and I'm sorry if Tim wouldn't have—" "It's not Tim's fault," he interrupted. "Tim couldn't fight while worrying about me the whole time. That was my fault." Everyone stared at me, bewildered by his and Eve's words. I lowered my head. I was disgusted with myself. I want to apologize, but I couldn't get myself to say anything at all. "Besides, I have to learn to take care for myself. I trusted someone else to do that. That was a mistake," he replied, clenching his fist. "I should have known better. Besides, there's no way Tim could have known what was going to happen." He paused and turned toward the window with a solemn look on his face. "Besides, if they take me light, they'll pay for it," he continued, showing some semblance of his former self. But even with that, his demeanor was different. I always thought of him as a pest, but at least then he seemed to have a personality. Now he seemed lifeless. I had never seen him so serious. He was always so full of life. Now he seemed almost cold in his expression, and the worst part was, I deserved to be ripped apart for what I did. What did he mean it wasn't my fault? I was so twisted inside. Did he really believe that? It was my job to watch his back. I promised him before the battle I would, and I let him down as soon as it was convenient to do so. He said that I couldn't watch his back and fight at the same time. Of course it would have been harder, but I could have. I chose not to.
"Well, good thing he wasn't on our side,"
Zek replied obnoxiously.
"I mean, he fights too out of control."
"Yeah, he would have really thrown off your flawless synchronicity," Sai sarcastically replied in Sam's defense.
"Our what?"
Zek replied obliviously.
"Shut up, Zek,"
Joe fired in an annoyed tone.
"Do you want to get us in trouble again? You heard Max. Leave the SOC alone."
I wanted to say something. I wanted to clarify things between us, but for some reason I couldn't. It had never been our relationship. Sam and I fought regularly. It was a normal part of our relationship, but we never apologized, and with the audience in the transport, it made it even harder to speak up. "If you two cocky, arrogant little brats call him another name, this transport is about to have 2 less passengers," Eve grunted through clenched teeth. "What is the matter with people in this realm? Jade calling him the weakest link, the rest of you acting like you didn't hear it, and these 2 little pipsqueaks insulting the guy on top of that. Sam risked his life for us, for me. Or did you guys forget that? He fought a masterclass demon without a thought for his own well-being, for us. Without him intervening, protecting us, Father Yahweh only knows what would have happened. Even with Tim's heroics, Jacob would have never got to us in time. And you guys demean that because Tim made a mistake that led to him being knocked out of the fight. What is wrong with you guys?" She stared daggers at me as she spoke. It seemed like all the progress we had made would take a back seat to the latest turn of events. She looked like she wanted to tear me in half.
And Tim, for you to sit and say nothing when you know, she continued.
Eve, it's okay, Sam fired, trying his best to cool her off before she blew her top.
No, it's not, Sai rebutted. We're supposed to be a team, a legion, and Eve's right. We should have spoken up. You guys, we have got to stop thinking like kids. We can't afford it anymore, and that goes for you two as well. Zach and Joe, Sam is your legion mate, not an SOC, and I don't want to hear you call him that again. Sam saved your lives. Show some gratitude. She turned to Sam with a sympathetic smile. I'm sorry, Sammy, she said shamefully. It shouldn't have taken Eve for me to say something. I felt... No excuses. I'm sorry, okay?
You're crazy about me, Sai. No need in you making it obvious. You're like a mock to a feint. Sam poked sarcastically, taking advantage of the situation.
She made her way across the limo, catching us all off guard. She lowered her head as if to be getting ready to plant a kiss right on his lips. His eyes were as big as silver dollars, matching the feel of every one of us watching. As he closed his eyes to receive it, she leaned back and bopped him on the head. He recoiled, grabbing his head, grimacing in pain. Is that obvious enough? She replied with a chuckle. And it's moth to a flame there, Nietzsche.
Okay, I deserved that, he replied, still wincing from the shot.
Jacob stood up, calming everyone down. They all turned toward him. He seemed to do that a lot. His presence seemed to just command attention. I continued to stare out the window in protest as he began to give one of his speeches.
All kidding aside, Sai and Eve are right, Jacob agreed. You're all right in my book, Sam, and I'll stand with you. If it comes down to it, if you don't make it in, then I don't make it in. They can take their academy and shove it.
They all stood, nodding, signaling that they agreed. They did this in succession until it fell on the twins. Oh, all right. It wouldn't be fun without you guys anyways. Sam is all right with me, Joe replied, finally relenting. Yeah, me too. No more wisecracks. You did save me and my brother, and that makes you our friend, so for that I won't make fun of you. Anymore, Zek stated, raising his right hand. Well, not about being well, you know. Joe scratched his head, as if to be pondering himself. Yeah, let me add that too. Everything else is still open, Joe clarified. I looked over at Eve as she patted Sam on the back. They all slowly converged around him, giving him high fives and various forms of acknowledgement as he fought back a smile. I begrudgingly lowered my head and started toward him, finally ready to fall on my sword. I let you down. That was on me, I forced out. I told you I would have your back, and I failed. I won't again, I promise. They all looked at me with inquisitive demeanors. Sam nodded as we shook hands and embraced on the pact. The rest of the crew began to hug and pat us on the back as we released our bro hug.
Next time I'll make it easier for you, he said with a determined stare.
Took you long enough, Eve replied, giving me a playful slug. I acknowledged her statement with a nod as Luke almost knocked me over trying to find Jade and Max. Okay, enough with the mushy stuff, he said, reaching to grab me as I toppled over. Sorry, Tim, but can we get back to this tournament and what's next on the agenda? Sai cut her eyes at Luke. Luke, can you resist the urge to be a jerk for once in your life? She said in an annoyed tone. What? I'm not being a jerk. Well, maybe a little. Whatever, man. I'm too exhausted to care. I just want to know how long it'll be until we can get some shut-eye, he contended, falling backwards. Well, we have quite an agenda set for you guys for the next 2 days. You got orientation, press conferences, media events. But today, first things first, we have to have meetings with some agencies to figure out who will be representing you guys, Jade replied. Okay, cool, let's do it, Jacob replied. Max gave a nod before flipping out a holographic list. He began scrolling down like he was using a computer screen before stopping.
Here we are. We'll start with Pete, Beth, Eve, and the twins. You guys will be represented by the Genesis Talent Agency. They're one of the top-tier agencies in the quadrant, They have experience dealing with siblings and verts, so I thought it would be a good fit for you guys. They have really good equipment and should set you guys up nicely for the trials," he explained. "Luke and Uriah will meet Danielle at the Alpha Omega Talent Agency. AO is one of the top 2 agencies in the realm. They deal with teens, are an excellent marketing firm, and are well-funded. Sai, Jacob, and Tim will be represented by Revelations. Revelations is the top agency in the realm. They asked for you guys by name, and with an agency like that, we had to jump on it." He tapped on the hologram, causing it to disappear before raising his head with an innocent smile, oblivious to the fact that he hadn't even mentioned Sam. "What about me?" Sam asked bashfully. He nervously fuddled around as if to be looking for something before relenting sorrowfully. "Oh, I'm sorry, Sam," he said, finally coming to his senses. "We haven't found one for you yet. Like we said with your record, it's hard to find suitors, but don't feel bad. It's rare to find any candidates that have agencies backing them. Besides, you have us, and we're as good as any agency."
"Yeah, don't worry about it," Jade replied. "These guys are big business. All it'll take is a great performance in the trials, and you'll be the talk of the town as well."
His words did little to cheer Sam up. We all turned away as an awkward silence ensued. Once again, I felt like trash. I had to do something. I stared at the beautiful scenery, unable to enjoy the sights. I was sick, but then it hit me. I had an idea. I knew what I was going to do. "It's fine," Sam finally replied, heading toward one of the rooms. "I'll just do it by myself. No biggie. It's not like I need any help. I've done well enough on my own so far." Eve gave a sorrowful gaze before turning away without saying a word. We all knew pity at this point would only serve to keep the conversation going, so no one said a word as Sam made his way back to one of the rooms and closed the door. "Poor kid," Luke said, shaking his head. "Yeah, the kid can't get a fair shake to save his life," Jacob added in an annoyed tone.
"What do you mean?"
Pete added, still in the dark about Sam's past.
"Sam's had a complicated past,"
Sai added, giving as little information as possible.
"Really? What happened?"
Pete pressed. "It's no one's business," Eve chimed in aggressively.
"Okay, sorry,"
Pete surrendered.
"No, I think what Eve is trying to say is Sam should be the one to tell you, not us. It just seems like an infringement coming from us,"
Sai said, softening the mood. Eve's demeanor was off-putting. I had never known she was such a fierce and loyal friend. She would have taken on the lot of us at that moment if it meant she could shield Sam. As selfish as it seemed, I was jealous. She exhaled in a relenting fashion before turning to me.
"And Tim, I'm sorry. I was wrong to imply what I did. Sam was right. You couldn't have known the consequence at the time. As powerful as you are, you were just like the rest of us, and I shouldn't have said what I said," she said, looking away. "It's okay. I was wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying that. I had a chance to make the right decision. It would have been harder, but it was still the right thing to do. I let down a teammate who believed in me. I'll take the blame for the outcome. I'll make it up to him, and not just him, but you, and the rest of you too," I replied, trying my best to disguise my words.
"Aw, how sweet," Jacob jabbed, killing my moment. "Shut up, Jake," I fired back. Everyone exploded with laughter as a feel of embarrassment fell over me. Everyone else gets to make a speech, but the minute I try, it just must be taken over by Jacob. At least this time it served to ease the tensions in the limo, even if it was just for a second or two. I slumped in my seat and stared out the window. Eve made her way over to me covertly and nestled in after the commotion died down. I smiled as she playfully met my wondering gaze. "He's right, you know," she said with a smile. "You are sweet." She dipped in and kissed my cheek. The feel of her lips on my skin turned my body to mush. "Thanks, but what was that for?" I muttered, caught off guard. When they say girls are hard to understand, they aren't kidding. If someone would have told me 2 minutes ago that I was about to receive my first kiss from Eve, I would have called them crazy. She looked like she wanted to tear me to pieces. I was presently surprised, yet still pretty confused. "Well, I don't know," she said, blushing from ear to ear. I was so hard on you. I guess I'm just happy. You not mad at me? I'm happy you understand." "Yeah, sure," I mumbled, still on cloud nine. Luke, Jacob, and Uriah nearly tackled me at the same time. They were falling all over me, making kissing sounds as Eve covered her face, embarrassed, as she blushingly headed towards Sai and Beth. Sai stared at me with a surprised, almost vacant stare before smiling as Eve approached. Pete covered his mouth in excitement as I nodded in his direction. "Come on, get off me, you guys," I groaned as they pulled me back and forth like a rag doll. "When did this start? I guess that little time in the room panned out, little bro," Jacob poked, patting my back like a proud father. "So, what, are you two together, little Eli?" Uriah added with a chuckle. "Tim, and no, we're just friends," I responded defensively. "Okay, I see you want to leave your options open," Luke added with a wink. "What? Wait, no," I replied with a stutter. I turned away from the commotion and caught a glimpse of Sam staring in a crack in the door. He looked devastated. He slowly dropped his head and turned in a depressed manner as the door closed behind him. It hit me in the stomach like a punch to the gut. "What's up with Sam?" I asked, hoping someone else caught a glimpse of his display. "Nothing. He's probably just bummed out," Pete added. "He'll get over it. He's a strong kid. And like he said, he doesn't blame you, so stop blaming yourself. He'll grow from this. You'll see. He doesn't need your pity right now. It'll only make things worse." I nodded in agreement as he patted me on the back. "Tim, seriously, you're going to make a lot of bad calls. The main thing is learning from them and doing better next time. Sam doesn't blame you, and neither do we. Sam's going to kick butt in the trials. The kid has more heart than any of us. Like he said, anyone who takes him lightly is in for a rude awakening," Jacob added, staring toward the room. I hoped Sam was hearing the things they were saying. If for nothing else, I was just glad they said it, so I wouldn't have to myself. Either way, he needed to hear them. "Well said," Jade seconded, patting me on the back. "No son of Adam is perfect. If you were, we wouldn't need Jesus." It's not that what they were saying wasn't making sense. They were right. But nevertheless, if it killed me, I was going to make things up to him. The limo slowed to a stop, ending my brief pity party as we pulled in front of a beautiful building that seemed to be made up of some type of metallic pearly white material with dark gold trim. "We're here," Jade replied. "The first group, Pete, Eve, Beth, and the twins. This is your stop. I'll be your escort, so let's go." They all made their way to the door, grabbing their belongings as they went. "We'll be back to pick you guys up a little later," Max replied. They all gave varying acknowledgments as they climbed out of the limo. I looked on as they stared up in awe of their surroundings as we drove away. Everything still felt surreal. I couldn't believe everything was happening. I felt like some type of superstar. It was amazing. "Luke, you and Uriah will be let out on your own. Danielle will guide you guys. She'll be there with one of her father's lawyers, so you guys will be in good hands," Max explained. "That little chick is whacked," Luke rebutted. "I don't want to be left in her hands. How do we know she won't screw us over?" "We're in heaven," Uriah replied. "If we can't trust the people here, who can we trust?" "Don't worry, the people here are good people. They have emotional defects just like people in your realm, because they are people from your realm for the most part. But they wouldn't be here if they weren't good, honest people. Once they pass on, they are purified by the light, so they don't have the hang-ups of your world, the hurts, pains, lust, and other things of the flesh," Max reassured us. I shook my head as the beautiful building zoomed by. The vibrant colors reflecting all over the place were beautiful. I couldn't get enough. They continued their chat until the limo slowed to a stop once more. I turned to see Danielle waiting near the entrance of the building, about as chipper as a snapping turtle. "Here we go," Luke replied, stepping out. "See you guys on the flip side," Uriah replied, following behind him. Danielle tapped her feet impatiently before giving each of them the most unaffectionate hug I had ever seen. She gave bourgeois a whole different meaning. She turned and started toward the entrance as the boys greeted the lawyer. I sat back and prepared myself. I had put Sam in this predicament, so I was going to have to do what I had to do to make things right. I sat racking my mind, trying to formulate an opportunity. As I watched the beautiful golden buildings whiz by, I had an epiphany. I knew how I would help him. I saw my plan, and I was ready to put it into action as our limo finally pulled up to our stop. My hands trembled, and I could feel myself become nervous, but I had to do it. I was ready.